I've been making videos on speed learning for the last 4 years. The idea of speed learning is very simple. How do you consume and process as much information as possible in the shortest period of time? And for the last 4 years, my speed learning videos have been pretty much the same, using techniques like Pareto principle, advanced information processing, active recall, those kind of things. But a few months ago, I started implementing ChatGPT into the speed learning process, and oh my goodness, AI is completely changing how we learn. When it comes to speed learning, there are two main components that are required to actually remember and retain information in your long-term memory. There's the image capture stage where you actually find the information, and we're going to be using ChatGPT to significantly accelerate this process. And the second stage is the information processing stage. And we're going to be using Miro to improve the speed in which you can actually remember the information and move it from your short-term to your long-term memory. So the idea here is that you create a very simple two-step speed learning systems to significantly accelerate your speed learning, so you essentially become more knowledgeable, more informed than the people around you. At least that's the goal. Use ChatGPT to create a learning plan. So if you have an exam coming up, one of the best things you can do is create a learning plan. And this will basically be your roadmap, right? If you want to achieve a 4.0 GPA in your exam in 3 months, how exactly are you going to do this? So let's say you have a AP US history exam at the end of the year. So the first part of the speed learning process is information capture. And we use ChatGPT for information capture. So we'll type this prompt into ChatGPT, put together a learning plan for the AP US history exam. And ChatGPT comes up with a genuinely really good study plan because it knows how our brains process information. It knows that in the first 1 to 2 months, you should be focusing on the basics, the fundamentals of the course. Then in months 3 to 7, you should be doing practice questions regularly. In month 8, it recommends you take practice exam questions. And in month 9, you identify your weak points and take more exam questions. So that's literally exactly how I would recommend a student organize their own study plan. ChatGPT is not just giving me random information, but it genuinely knows how the human brain processes information and gives you more efficient ways to plan for your exam. So that's stage 1, information capture, but how do we process the information so that we can actually remember it? So we have to move to stage 2, information processing stage, and that's where we head over to Miro to actually record the information that we've just gathered from ChatGPT. And Miro is perfect for this. Miro is a digital collaboration platform designed to help with remote team communication and project management. It's amazing for presenting information in a way that is very easy to process, right? And they very kindly sponsored this video, but I've been using Miro for years beforehand anyway, for learning, for presenting live workshops, for collaborative projects, and I love what they do as a company, and I'm more than happy to endorse them. I'll be using Miro throughout this video, so if you do want to check them out, it's free to use. I've added a link in the description below. What I like about Miro is that you can choose from hundreds of ready-made templates, and that's how I usually start my Miro board. So I'll be making a learning plan, so I'll go to their templates and type into search timelines, and dozens of different timelines come up, some really creative ones too. I'm going to choose this fairly simple timeline template. I like simplicity. So the learning plan is broken down into 4 sections: 1 to 2 months, 3 to 9 months, 10 months, and month 11. So let's say the timeline starts in January. So I'll adjust the blocks to represent the 4 sections. I'll add sticky notes, and these will be all the subjects and topics I need to cover for the year. And then we have these blocks above the timeline that I can change. I mean, you can change them to whatever you like, but I'm just freestyling here. And there you have your learning plan designed on Miro that you can print off and have on your wall if you like. But you see here how this board is so much more aesthetically pleasing than the black and white text that ChatGPT generated. Use ChatGPT to create a weekly schedule. So once your learning plan is in place, you can then ask ChatGPT to build you a weekly schedule around your learning plan, right? So the more specific you are with the prompts, the better the schedule ChatGPT will make for you. So the prompt that I will use is build me a weekly study schedule based on the above information. And I would like to have Sundays off, and I start my day at 7 a.m. and I want to relax at 7 p.m. every day. So that's pretty specific. It could be more specific, but that's pretty good start. And as you'd expect, ChatGPT will come up with a weekly study schedule for you. Now, as with almost everything that ChatGPT comes up with, you'll probably need to do some tweaking here and there. So the weekly schedule is a great base for you to then tweak, improve, add to, and basically customize it to make it perfect for you. As always, the second step is to process the information that ChatGPT generates. So let's head over to Miro. Again, I'm going to search for Miro template, so it does most of the heavy lifting for me. I'll choose this weekly agenda template. I'll then rename the 2 sections to morning and afternoon and add 2 more columns for Saturday and Sunday. And then you essentially just fill in the weekly schedule. And this is the exact information ChatGPT generated for me. Of course, you should be tailoring it to your own life. A real routine would be far more varied than this. But you get the idea of how ChatGPT generates the information and then Miro presents the information. Use ChatGPT as your one-on-one tutor. So I've never actually mentioned this on this channel before, but when I was at university, for about a year, I had a one-on-one tutor. I think I was paying this tutor about $30 an hour and seeing them maybe once a week to help me with more complex math topics with my economics and finance degree. But if I was at university in 2023, I wouldn't need to pay $30 an hour because ChatGPT can be your one-on-one tutor, and a very good one at that. So what makes ChatGPT so effective for learning is that it can personalize your learning. It gives you immediate feedback on answers and it personalizes your learning. You can guide the conversation based on what you want to learn. ChatGPT can adapt the discussion to your level of understanding. For example, I can type into the prompt, act as a one-on-one tutor and walk me through the timeline of World War II. I don't know anything about the war, so let's start with the basics. And then it gives me a timeline, but I can then ask questions about the answer it just gave me. For example, I can write, you mentioned that in 1943 the war starts to turn in favor of the Allies. How did the Allies manage to do this? And now ChatGPT is my tutor. It's like you're having an actual conversation with a human being, which normally you'd have to pay, in my case, $30 an hour for. So that's the information capture stage. We can then move over to the information processing stage on Miro, where we can then present the information in a much more organized way. So with ChatGPT, we get given a list of dates for the timeline of World War II. But when it comes to speed learning, lists often aren't the most optimal way to process information, especially if you're a visual learner. So on Miro, we can really quickly turn that dry list to a far more interesting and visual timeline where each event is color-coded. It's just far easier to memorize if you have an exam coming up, for example. Use ChatGPT to extract and summarize information. So when I was at university, I had to read hundreds and hundreds of research papers, of articles, of studies, and often these papers were very, very dry, often 10+ pages long, and I had to skim through each paper and basically extract the most important key findings. And I wish I had AI when I was at university because this will save you guys so much time. Now all you have to do is copy and paste the text into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize the main findings for you. So what I'll do is I'll open this research paper on how to memorize information effectively, very fitting for this video. And this paper is about 8 pages long, so it would take quite a while to read or even skim through it. But with ChatGPT, I don't necessarily need to read it all. I'll just copy all the text in the paper. I'll then open up ChatGPT and use the prompt, summarize the 5 key points from the following research paper, and I'll paste the research paper there. Now, in just seconds, ChatGPT will summarize the main points of the paper so I don't have to read through the entire 8 or 9 pages. As usual, once we have the summary, we then add those golden nuggets of information to our Miro board so that we can actually process the information. And one of my favorite templates on Miro is the Scamper template. It's great for brainstorming or just kind of organizing small nuggets of information. As usual, we're going to open up the template and I'm going to copy and paste the 5 key points from the journal article that ChatGPT very kindly summarized for me. So by organizing the information in Miro, It's a lot easier to read and interpret. And what I like about this Scamper template is that I can add extra key points from numerous journals and present them in an organized way within the template. So each color of sticky notes could be a different journal. It's very aesthetic, so much so that you could even print it out and stick it on your bedroom wall to revise from if you want to. Use ChatGPT to create a mind map. So with ChatGPT, you can easily generate ideas and categorize them and create a kind of comprehensive mind map to bring your thoughts to life. So let me show you. I'll use the prompt, build me a mind map on the history of the Industrial Revolution with foundational ideas, main branches, and secondary branches. So the output here is very text-based, right? And slightly boring. It's very kind of stereotypical for ChatGPT. So the next thing we do is we move it over to Miro to kind of bring that information alive. As usual, I choose a template on Miro so I don't have to start from scratch. I almost always choose the pre-filled option just so I can get an idea of what a finished template actually looks like. And from there, we can copy the information over from ChatGPT. And as I'm making this mind map, already you can tell straight away how much more aesthetic and better organized Miro does with mind maps and visual learning than ChatGPT does. But it makes sense, like they're different products, they're different tools, they do different things. But that's why Miro is so important for the actual memorization process rather than trying to memorize information straight from ChatGPT itself. And what's also nice is that you can add links to the mind map as well. So for example, if I wanted to refer to a source for the deforestation and resource exploitation, I just find the link. In this case, I'll just use Wikipedia as an example, right click, click the link icon, and it's now a link. Simple as that. Use ChatGPT to create unlimited exam past paper questions. If you're studying for an exam past paper questions are the biggest revision hack there is, in my opinion. If you've watched any of my past videos, you'll know how important past papers are. But now what we're going to do is utilize ChatGPT to come up with, essentially, if you want, unlimited exam past paper questions based on the specific exam that you have coming up. For example, I can use the prompt, write 10 exam past papers for the NEET UG 2023 exams. So the NEET exam is the infamous medical entrance exam in India. And sure enough, ChatGPT comes up with 10 past exam paper questions. I'll then transfer them into a Miro board so I can actually study them. I like to use the prioritization matrix for past paper questions because it lets me rank each question for two values. Firstly, the likelihood of that particular question appearing in the exam, and secondly, on how well I know the answer to each individual question. Obviously, the higher the likelihood of a particular question coming up in the exam, the more important it is to make sure you know those questions really, really well. And eventually, the more you revise and prepare for your exam, you'll slowly be moving each question slightly to the right, bit by bit, until eventually all the questions are on the right side of the table, at least in theory, right? As a bonus, it's nice just to get a kind of a visualization of how well you know the content. If all the sticky notes in your matrix are on the very right of the table, then it means that you've learned most, if not all, the past paper questions. Use ChatGPT to create unlimited flashcards on a topic. And this is one of my favorite ways of using ChatGPT for learning when it comes to speed learning. Actually processing the information so it moves from your short-term to your long-term memory is one of the most important components. So what's the best way to process information? Oftentimes, it's flashcards, asking yourself questions and then answering them. It's a very simple but extremely effective approach. So I'm going to type into ChatGPT the prompt, create 50 flashcards on the gender equality movement during the Industrial Revolution. Note that I'm kind of being very specific with the prompts. I'm not just making a prompt asking for questions on the Industrial Revolution, but I'm dialing it down and I'm adding another level to it of complexity, I guess, by talking about gender equality also. And sure enough, it creates for me 50 flashcards. I won't do a Miro example for this part because for flashcards, I'd use the same prioritization matrix as the last exam questions. I think being able to organize your questions or the kind of golden nuggets of information that you need to learn for the exam in priority of the likelihood of it coming up in the exam is super, super powerful. For speed learning, utilizing technology like ChatGPT and Miro and essentially creating a two-step information processing system is ridiculously powerful. If you do want to check Miro out, which I suggest you do, I've been using Miro for years. You can click on the link in the description. And if you want to check out my other speed learning videos, I've put them all into a neat little playlist so you can watch them all one after the other. You can click on the card on the screen right here.